So I was undefeated for 4 years. This is like the bummer story. So I started boxing around like 2012. Female boxing just made it into the Olympic Games. So I was just like, oh man, like, you know, when I'm Googling, like, okay, like where can I go with female boxing, right? Like, what can I really do? And so I'm like Googling it. And then it was like, oh, female boxing was just added to the Olympics for 2012. Like, it just happened. I was like, whoa, I could start now, you know, win nationals, stay on the team for 4 years, get enough experience, and then win gold in the Olympics in 2016. Like, that was like my plan.
Welcome to Fruiting Buddy Podcast with your host, Brendan. Today we have an absolute legend of a guest making her first appearance. It is Danyelle Wolf. She is the three-time U.S. National Boxing Champion, Real Estate Mogul, life coach, and she's here in Phuket, Thailand, training over at Tiger Muay Thai. How we do on this podcast, we like to just jump right into it. Don't subscribe. Let's get it started right away with Danyelle Wolf. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem.
I think we probably were chatting about... Well, I was rambling about Bitcoin and talking about real estate. Yeah. We're going to get into all that and specifically what you're doing in San Diego with the real estate stuff. Mm-hmm. We obviously love to share those stories about what brings you to Thailand and what you're doing here and maybe what's bringing you back. But first, let's start with Danyelle. Danyelle, where are you from originally? Let us know a little bit about your life and your backstory.
Yeah. So I'm originally from York, Pennsylvania, small country town. We share the road with Amish people, you know, riding the horse and buggies. So yeah, very small town. You know, my mom had the same bus driver that I had, you know, growing up. So if I would have stayed in that town, I would have had kids. They would have had the same bus driver. So very small town. But yeah, so I played every sport growing up. I played field hockey, basketball, track, soccer, softball. Went to college on a sports scholarship.
Which college was it?
Millersville University.
In Pennsylvania?
Yes, in Pennsylvania. And then, so I had a full ride there, played field hockey, basketball and track, did the heptathlon and track, which is 7 events. So yeah, I've been playing sports pretty much every single day of my whole life.
You were doing that at a very young age.
Yes.
I'm a hockey player too.
Oh, nice.
I got my gear here. I'm actually going to Chiang Mai December 15th. We have a hockey tournament. They have a hockey rink. I know you're field hockey.
Yeah.
But they have a rink at the Boat Avenue side.
Okay.
The issue is with the traffic. It's just such a nightmare. But yeah, I've been playing hockey in Asia for like 12, 15 years.
Oh, that's cool.
And Canadian since we're 2 years old. But hockey must be big in Pennsylvania as well. But usually for females, they do prefer field hockey. What was your first sport when you first started?
First sport, probably softball. Yeah. I played softball. Every sport I played for like 10 years. So it was really funny. Like, I didn't see my first boxing glove till I was 25 years old. So like, it was pretty much starting all over. I could have picked any sport and kind of ran with it. You know, because I was really good at all the sports. But yeah, like softball I played like 10 years, basketball like 15 years, field hockey like, I don't know, 10 years. Like every sport was like 10 years. And then when I was 25, I moved out to California for life coaching. So I ran my own thing there. And after a year of that, I saved up like a good chunk of change. I had like 80 grand. And I was like, okay, do I go back to athletics? Because that was the first year I didn't compete in any sports and I hated it. I was just like, man, this is like the first year of my life. I had a real job and I never went to the gym and lifted weights or anything my whole life. Like, never stepped foot in a gym ever. Didn't know how to run on a treadmill at the age of 25. Like, it blows my mind now. But, like, back then, I never hit a gym. I was always on fields or tracks or whatever. You know, I never did strength training or anything.
I don't think, we're probably a similar age. When I was born 85, but... When I was in high school or that time, nobody was a runner, really. We just played the sports. So I can relate. I'm from a small town as well, maybe 30,000. So when you're actually getting into the boxing and you're starting it, I read a little bit about your backstory, and you had that challenge, like, hey, you know, tryouts or training, it's coming in 2 weeks. You're like, fuck it, I'm ready to go. Can you walk us through that process and starting off boxing and that whole career? Because again, 25, starting a boxing career, it's not a young age.
Yeah. So it was so funny. So I remember, this is how I got introduced to boxing. I just started running. So I decided after a year of being a life coach, I saved a chunk of change, and I was like, all right, I'm going to take the next 2 years off and I'm going to just pick a sport and see how far I can go with it. And then I remember I was like, okay, do I want to do WNBA? Do I want to do Team USA field hockey, Team USA soccer? What sport do I want to like go all into? And then I was like, you know what? I briefly, right before college, got into mountain biking professionally. I went from beginner to expert pro in just 2 races. And I loved it. But then because of preseason started, my coach found out I was racing, and she was like, if I find out you get injured, like you're losing your scholarship. And I was like, oh, need college. Went, quit doing the mountain biking. But I loved mountain biking. I was really good at it. I was really good at triathlons. I ran a triathlon with a bunch of my buddies. Like 10 of my buddies were doing this triathlon. They were training for months when I was in college. And they were all betting on who's going to win. I was like, I'll do this triathlon. I won't even train for it. And I was like, I'll beat all of you. And they're like, yeah, right, la, la, la. So-and-so's going to win. Then second, that they're. So I didn't train running or race. I didn't train swimming. So I didn't train swimming at all. And then when I was like, I'm going to do the race. So I entered the race with them, and I backstroked the whole swim because I like couldn't swim and breathe at the same time.
Gotcha, yeah.
So I won the whole triathlon by backstroking the whole race. So I was just like, man, I really, fast forward, I was like, I really miss the extreme sports, like the mountain bike racing, the triathlons, like the longer endurance races. And I was just like, you know what, that's going to be the sport I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick, ultra triathlons and, 24-hour races, Ironmans. I want to be like extreme racer, 24-hour races, all of that. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So after I saved the money doing the life coaching, I moved down to Pacific Beach. It's a younger area. I was living in Rancho Santa Fe. So I moved down to Pacific Beach, and I just started running like every day, trying to like up my miles. I didn't work out for a year. So I was just like, I was still like, jacked and muscular, but I needed to like lean out and just get my miles up. So I started running every single day. And every day, no lie, every single day I was getting stopped by someone, and they would ask me if I was a fighter. So that's how this whole thing started. So somebody would be like, oh, hey, are you a fighter? And I'd be like, fighter for what? Like I didn't know what they were talking about. And then the next day, and they're like, oh, no, a fighter. And I'd be like, oh, no, I'm not a fighter. It's a weird question to ask a chick running. Next day, I'd be running again, and somebody would stop me again, like, hey, what gym do you fight out of? And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And then they're like, you're a fighter. I'm like, no, I'm not a fighter. I'm like, what the heck? And it was such like a weird time in my life. I was like at such a crossroads of like, okay, do I want to take this money and start growing my business? Because a lot of families wanted me to life coach their families as well, but I was only one person, so I could only do a couple families at a time. So I was like, okay, I could hire people. Now that I have the savings, I could hire people so I could take on more families and then pay them a salary, blah, blah, blah. I was like, or do I take this money? I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to get into patent law. So I was like, okay, I've always wanted to go to law school, get into patent law. I could finally do it. I saved the money. I was like, or do I take the 2 years off? So I was like really like at this weird crossroads of like, okay, what do I do, And then just speaking to so many of my older friends and, just really like talking it through to people. And I was praying to God. I'm like, God, can you just write it in the clouds? Like, what is the right, choice for me, And I don't want to waste this money. Is this the right thing? Blah, blah, blah. And then you only live once, and then you only have your youth once, blah, blah, blah. Like all this stuff.
And this is all before the age of 25.
Yeah, I was like 24 and a half,
Jesus.
Yeah.
These are like, these crises people have at the age of like 35.
Yeah. So then like no lie, then the next day I'm running again. Somebody's like, hey, like what style of fighter are you? And I'm like, this is insane. No lie. It was like every single day. I'm like, maybe this is the clouds, like this is the clouds I've been asking God to like write it in. Next day I'm at a lunch place. This guy's walking back and forth when my friend and I, we're eating lunch, and he's like, hey, are you a fighter? And I'm like, this is insane. Is my nose messed up? Like, what the heck? Why is everybody asking me this? I was so mad. And then it just kept going. Like that, it's not even the last story. I could keep saying more examples. So anyway, finally I went to a radio hostess, like interview, like they were trying to make this like kind of like this, back then. And so they were looking for a radio female personality. I went for the interview, and then I made the final interview. I go to the back, and when I go to the back office, the guy has all these like boxing promotion like posters hung up. So I didn't think anything of it. I like sit down, I have a shirt on like this, and this guy's like, what the hell do you do? And then I was like, excuse me? And he's like, are you a fighter? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm at an interview, for goodness sakes, And I'm just like, why does everybody think I'm a fighter? So then I was like, no, I'm an athlete, been an athlete my whole life. And he's like, did you ever get in a fight before? And I was like, this is getting out of control. I'm like, I'm getting so annoyed. I'm like, I must look like beat up. Like, I'm like, what the heck? And then, so then the guy was like, have you ever tried it? And I was like, no. And I was like, he's like, you never got in a fight? I was like, no, I'm not an idiot. And then, and I was like, and I'm like jacked and like 6 foot tall. I'm like, people don't usually mess with me. And then, and he was just like, well, he's like, meet me at this gym tomorrow and like, you should try it out. I was like, you know what? I was like, this has been like 2 weeks worth of like everyone asking me. I was like, I'm just going to try it out. It's the only sport I haven't done, So then, yeah, so I went to the gym, I tried it out and it was so cool. It was like the challenge I've been seeking my like whole life. I think that's why I was attracted to like mountain biking. That's like 25 miles on like rocky terrain, uphill, downhill. You got to snap out of your bike, run through the creek. You're like, it's just so like complex.
This extreme sport. This like you're saying, if you're doing ultra triathlons, anything.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
ultra
just
size.
something that's like your brain is like, I don't want to do this, and then like you're like, no, we're doing this. Let's find that next level. Let's find that next spot, and then training around and outside of that to like get better and better and better, and then just putting yourself like in such uncomfortable situations so that you're better next time and next time and next time, and you just are just rising to just every situation. So so when I did it, I was just like, wow, like rotating your hips is just like hitting a baseball, and throwing a baseball, and then like just the footwork and moving around your opponent is like playing defense in basketball, and then like just footwork like soccer. So like all my sports I played my whole life like kind of all came together, but not even close to coming together, like it's just the natural athleticism I had.
Yeah, I think once you're a natural athlete, it just like, look at these like guys like Steph Curry. Mm-hmm. He's obviously one of the greatest of all time basketball players, and then put him on the golf course and he's hitting like 40-foot putts from like downhill. Yeah. It's just once you're a natural athlete, you can quickly adapt to anything.
Yeah.
So when you're getting into the boxing side, obviously when you're first learning, you're not really sparring, and everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah,
Can you recall that like first experience boxing when you finally got, you took a shot and you're like, okay, wait a minute, what the fuck's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, and you have to get hit to get used to getting hit, So yeah, let's see if I can go back. So I remember I was like sparring way too big of guys. Like I got to a point where I was like gun shy because the guys I was sparring, I probably shouldn't have been sparring these huge white Russian guys, But yeah, I had a guy who was being my coach for a while, and yeah, it was wild in the beginning. But then once you get good and then like what you should be training with, then like this is a safe situation, this is not a safe situation, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely was in the ring.
But as like, so you're a featherweight, I'm assuming.
Like welterweight.
But yeah, no, I mean probably an MMA.
Yeah, MMA featherweight.
Featherweight, female featherweight. Okay, so I was basing it on that. Now, I mean, when you're training boxing, there can't be that many other women at the gym that are like your size of build, fit, ready to go. So is that kind of what forced you to be training with the boys?
Yeah, I mean, back when I started boxing, I like you asked me the question like, oh, like how did you get in? How did you learn about boxing? I'll go back to that question because it is pretty funny, a funny answer. So I called the Olympic Training Center and I asked them like, hey, like how do you become the national champion? How do you become, no, I didn't say that. I said, how do you make Team USA? That's right. So I was like, how do you make Team USA? And they were like, oh, you have to be the national champion. I'm like, okay, how does someone become a national champion? Like you have to go to nationals. How can someone enter in nationals? You have to have at least 5 fights. Okay, where do you get these 5 fights from? As long as they're USA Boxing sanctioned anywhere in the U.S. So I was like, oh, okay. And then they're like, so how long have you been boxing? And I was like, 1 week. And they were like, yeah, there's no way. Like, this is realistic. Like, these girls have been boxing since they were like, no. Then they asked me how old I was. They're like, how old are you? I was like 20, about to be 25. And they're like, yeah. They're like, way too old. And then like everybody's been boxing since they were like 5 and 6, and they've been like national champions for years. And I was like, well, I've been an athlete since I was like 5 or 6, and I was like, and I'm pretty good at all the sports I play. And so it was so funny to hear this from Olympic Training Center. I would pay like $10,000 to have that phone call, recorded.
Just keep that recorded.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, just tilt the mic a bit towards you.
Oh, okay.
No, it's fine now. I'll probably just, okay, that's good.
Like this?
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, you're still kind of having to go through the process.
Yeah.
Did you just have to go out and kind of find those first 5 fights and take it step by step?
Yeah, it was bizarre. So like I remember like the boxing coach I was working with, he's like, all right, we're gonna get you your first fight. So I go, to get my first fight. She had like 5 or 6 fights or something. It was like her gym, like her little area and everything. They had posters made like beat that model's face and all this stuff. And like it was like so ridiculous. And so yeah, I remember it was the first time I ever had cut weight before. Like so I'm like I'm like running on the treadmill with plastics on and Albaline and like just drenched, It was the first time I ever, because she was like way lighter than me. So like you have to make her weight. And then I was just like, oh, okay. And I had no idea how to cut weight. So I'm just running and running. So then I'm like dead. So as I walk up into the ring, I was like, my legs are like shaking. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't know how long I can last, because I cut weight and never did it. And so then I was like, I got to knock this chick out. I was like, because my legs aren't going to last. So I go in and I'm just like swinging like for knockouts, like all knockouts. And I finally did knock her out in the first round. And I was like, thank goodness, because I don't think my legs could have made it. So my first 5 fights were all knockouts. So in San Diego, we couldn't find any fights for me because my first 3 in San Diego were knockouts. So then we actually like snuck to LA. And like we'd be the first ones to weigh in. They would like match us. I'd be the first to weigh in, and so that they couldn't see me. And then my friend would dress up like in like a boxing outfit, so it looked like she was the opponent. And then me and my coach would go hit pads at the dumpster in the back alley. So the whole day, all the fights were going on, my opponent would be looking at my friend thinking she was the boxer. So this is how I got my last 2 fights. So then they would call our name and we'd come out from the dumpster like in the back alley.
Just so they wouldn't back out of the fight.
Yeah, so they went back because everybody in San Diego when I first started, like my little amateur fights, they were all backing out, because their girl just started too, or maybe they had 5 fights, but then their coach didn't want them to go against me because they heard that I did knockouts, whatever. So anyway, so then I finally got my 5 fights, but then I went to nationals and it was like night and day difference of opponents. I remember I got hit and I was like, whoa, this is like way different.
It's not amateur hour anymore.
Yeah, this is like, national, level. So then I won nationals and then I made Team USA and it was like the coolest experience in the world. Like I got to travel all around the world and I came from like small town Pennsylvania. So like our biggest vacation was driving 3 hours to like Chickatique, Virginia or Ocean City, Maryland, that was like our big thing. But so now like getting to go, travel all around the world to like South Korea and Jeju and, all around Canada, Venezuela, Guadalajara, we got to go all around. So it was really cool.
How many years were you doing that for?
So I was undefeated for 4 years. And then, so the bummer this is like the bummer story. So I started boxing around like 2012. So female boxing just made it into the Olympic Games. So I was just like, oh man, like, when I'm Googling like, okay, like what, where can I go with female boxing, right? Like what can I really do? And so I'm like Googling it. And then it was like, oh, female boxing was just added to the Olympics for 2012. Like it just happened. I was like, whoa. I'm like, I could start now, win nationals, stay on the team for 4 years, get enough experience, and then win gold in the Olympics in 2016. Like that was like my plan. And then when I was in first grade, like it was so funny that Fox or Sports did a story. They like went to my hometown, found my first grade teacher, and she like found the drawing that was like, she asked everybody in the class in first grade, like, what do you want to do when you get older? And then everybody's like, fireman, teacher, blah, blah. I drew like Olympic rings and I was like, I want to be in the Olympics. And so the story would have been awesome if my weight class would have been added in 2016. But anyway, so there's only 3 weight classes added in 2012 and 10 men weight classes. So 10 men, 3 women.
What was the highest weight class for women at that point?
It was 165.
So you'd have to be cutting like 20, plus your
I
weight.
would have to go up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was 152.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I fought 152. There was 165, and then there was like 132. And then there was like 116, right? So I would have had to go to like 75 so that then you could cut.
Sorry, yeah. Sometimes my brain, I'm thinking in kg and I'm thinking it's like 62. Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would have to go up like almost 15, 20 pounds.
Up. Yeah.
How big are those girls? Jesus.
Yeah, they're big. They're
Like,
big.
are they as tall as you and they just pack tons of muscle, or are they fatter?
Both.
Yeah,
you know,
'cause I
so
mean-
sometimes like butt's huge, like
Okay.
legs huge, like just solid lower. You know what I mean? Some are tall, some are like my height or taller, some 2 inches taller.
But this is like the heavyweight division of
Yeah.
females.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, but they promised me when I made Team USA, they were like, we're like 99.9% sure we're going to add your weight class to 2016. So I was like, oh, I'm going to stay on the team. I'm going to stay reigning champ. Like I won continental championships, which is pretty much like a little mini Olympics. So those are every 2 years. So I won both. So I won every 2 years continental championships, which there's only like 3 of us that did that. And then like I would win world championship titles and national golden glove titles and like all different types of anything I could go to, I would go and I would win. So it was exciting. I was like, man, I can taste the gold medal at the Olympic Games in 2016. And I was like, just like such on a high, like I was at my best and just so active in boxing. And then finally 2016, they made the announcement that they weren't adding 2 more weight classes, which mine was going to be one of them. And I was just like, no. So then I was trying to put on weight to go up and yeah, it just stunk. So then I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go to MMA, you know? But then the Olympic Committee was like, oh, if you wait till 2020, you know, we're going to add the Olympic Games. I mean, your weight class to the Olympic Games in 2020. And I was just like, I don't want to wait that long. I've always wanted to do MMA anyway. Like the only reason why I stayed on Team USA that long and didn't cross over to MMA sooner was just because of the Olympic Games. I really wanted to get gold in 2016.
And you're still at an age, you must be what, 32, 33 at this point?
Like I mean, 29, 30.
Yeah, so you're still kind of you're in your prime to be able to go into MMA or if the Olympics,
exactly. Yeah. So it's just like, you know, I'm like, I need to make a decision. Do I really want to wait another 4 years, you know? And like I had that business idea for real estate the whole time, but because I was traveling so much, I couldn't do it. So I just had this like golden egg just sitting there, you know, and I couldn't do it while I was on Team USA because like you're constantly like living at the Olympic Training Center for 2 months, then you go to Venezuela for a month, and then you come back to San Diego. Then you go, you know, train with your coaches, then you go back, then you're going to Guadalajara, then you go to Olympic Training Center. So it was just so much back and forth.
At what point did you start to just kind of give up on the dream and say, you know what, I'm going to transition to MMA?
Yeah, it was kind of like, okay, 4 years waiting for a possibility. Like I just had my heart ripped out of my chest for 2016 Olympic Games, like ripped out of my chest. So I was just like, do I want to risk waiting another 4 years, getting paid nothing, you know, and just like barely, like no one watches it, like it's no money. So I was like, I'm sick of being poor. I'm sick of like just getting by. I'm sick of being like this smart and not using it to like create a future. You know what I mean? So I was just like, I'm not going to risk another 4 years. I just did 4 years. You know what I mean? So, I was just like, I feel like I'm getting like dumber by not doing anything. You know what I mean? Just like training every day, living at Olympic Training Center, not working. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I can't keep doing this, you know? So that's when I, you know, a lot of different organizations were reaching out to me, like all the top ones in MMA. And then, you know, I met with a lot of them and they're just like, what's your plan? I was like, look, I don't even know how to throw a kick. I don't even know how to spell jiu-jitsu. And I was like, so like, I need to like, I want to take my time. I want to make a journey out of this. I felt so rushed with boxing. You know, I went from 0 to then making the national team and then just like traveling all around the world with Team USA. And then just like had so much pressure on myself to like win gold for the Olympics 2016. So those 4 years was just like, you know, like just so rushed, you know. You know, I had to make up so much time, you know, and I still feel like I'm doing that with MMA, but anyway, I was just like, look, I want to take my time. I want to learn, I want to put the gi on. I want to learn jiu-jitsu, you know, and I was doing like jiu-jitsu like 5 hours a day, every day. And I won the IBJJF World Championships.
Which was it in USA?
In US, yeah. Okay. And, but it like little white belt, but I was like so proud of myself. I was like, training 5 hours a day, and I was like, you know what, I want to like see where I stand, you know, I was just doing it for 4 months, and then I did like World League Championships, won double gold, And then all my friends, you know, that do jiu-jitsu all the time, I was like, why aren't you guys signing up for IBJJF? And then they're like, because we just do it as a hobby. And I was like, well, you should do it just to see it. And they're like, you do it. I'm like, I'll do it. And then I did it. And then, yeah, it was really cool. I don't even think I was tying my belt right yet. But
how quick was that transition? Because I saw you're on Dana White's Contender series, but you said you took your time to get to that point. So obviously on paper, I'm assuming you've had amateur MMA fights before.
No.
You went right into, because so you've had 2 or 3 fights.
So I had 0 MMA fights. So when I first started, I tried to get the amateur MMA fights.
Yeah.
But again, the same thing was happening. So like everybody would see my boxing record, and then nobody wanted to fight amateur MMA. I mean, over 20 people backed out. So somebody would be like, yeah, you know, she is 6-0, and then I have 0-0. But then like they would do more research, and then they'd be like, she has like 100 boxing fights, you know? And then, so then they would back out. Like, and I'd be like all like going for it for a month, and then they'd back out like 2 weeks before or whatever. And then, so that kept happening. So like I just kept training, and I wanted to get my feet wet. I wanted to get hit. I wanted to get like jumped on, tackled. I wanted that. Cause that's the only way to test yourself, you know? So I really, really wanted that, and I just could not find it. So I just was like, you know what? Just get the competition stuff out of your head and just be a student of the arts, you know? So I just like dove in that's when I dove into jiu-jitsu, and, you know, then I would get, you know, decent at jiu-jitsu, and I felt good against the black belts, and I could defend myself. So then I'd be like, okay, now let's see if I can get a fight. Same thing. People would just say no, you know, to the fights. They'd say yes at first, and then I guess somebody would Google or whatever. So then I started taking down all the videos on my Instagram page. Took down all my pad work videos, took everything down to try to see if I could still get someone. I still couldn't get a fight. So then I was just like, all right, I'm going to go to Thailand. I went out there for boxing before to teach boxing seminars. So I was like, I'm going to go out there and just like engulf myself in kicking, right?
What year was this? Around 16?
No. So 16, it was like 17 was when I started MMA. So then it was like 17 to 18 was like jiu-jitsu. So that was like jiu-jitsu. And then, so maybe around 18?
Coming out to Thailand.
For kicking. But I came out to Thailand when I was just boxing as well.
And you were actually, where were you teaching the seminars? Over at Tiger?
Tiger.
Yeah.
Tiger.
And did they reach out to you, or how did that come together?
Yeah, they reached out to me. Yeah, they reached out to me to teach a boxing seminar, and I was like, And that was the first time I ever traveled by myself, which I thought was like, it was like so cool. Like traveled by myself to like a whole different country, because usually it was always on Team USA that I would travel, but that was my first opportunity to travel by myself, and it was like so cool. I met so many friends, and everybody's so awesome out here. Like even the travelers from other countries, like everyone who comes out here, like is just so happy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is. Like I was explaining this to someone the other day. It's like in San Diego, it's like there's so many people that are just like, they're miserable. They hate their job, or they hate this, or like they hate these people, or they all make excuses, whatever, you know, it's, but like in Thailand, it's like, if they don't like something, they obviously left whatever they don't like, and they came here for change, you know?
And now this is kind of maybe one of the last resorts. You have to enjoy it, I think.
Yeah, but it's like people want change, so they come here, and then everybody's like ballsy enough to do that. You know, they're ballsy enough to travel, or they're ballsy enough to take that next step to the change, whether if it's losing weight or to start a new chapter in life or whatever. So the people are just so much more open-minded and happy, and just more pleasant. You know, I really like it.
You're out here doing the boxing seminar. Was it a couple weeks? Like when you're doing that, you know, it's that time constraint. You got to go back home. And most people that leave here, the second they leave, it's how do I get back there? Did you feel that?
Yeah. So I came out here for like, it was supposed to just be like 2 weeks. And then I remember I was like, man, I really like this so much. And I remember the coaching that I was getting at that time, like it wasn't as, like when I train, like I like to train. When I'm in a camp, I like regiment. I like structure. You know, I'm like, okay, what time are we training at this? You know, I want structure, you know, because then you can put your diet around it, and you can be, and sometimes like it's difficult to get that, you know, but out here it's 24/7, everyone's training, you know, like I could have 12 different coaches like all day, like everybody wants to train, whoever wants to train. That's what I think is awesome about here. And there's so many drilling partners. There's so many people that are just ready to work. That's
But you
what's
can't
really
get that
awesome.
at other gyms like in Florida. I mean, there's so much opportunity
Yeah,
out there.
top team. I hear there's a lot of good gyms in Florida. Yeah, for sure. But like my business is in San Diego, and so I want to really make it work in San Diego. I want to get.
Do you think
together.
so? On the real estate side, I mean, going to that into a second. I mean, if that's where the business is, you got to be connected at the hip. Any type of business, wherever. Like I do work in China, and even China to Thailand is too far for me. But before we get into the real estate stuff, jumping a little bit into your backstory. I mean, this super athlete, the ability to pick up any sport and be dominant. I mean, does this run in the family? Brothers, mother, your father?
No.
Where does this come from?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I was like
A genetic?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, usually it's gonna come from like what were your parents doing for work? I mean, were they involved in sports at all?
no. Yeah, it's really weird. Like, so I'm like the middle child, and so I have a little sister and I have an older sister. We're all 5 years apart, and my older sister was kind of like, she had glasses, a headgear, retainer, braces. We were like totally opposite, and she was more of like school. I was more like the jock, but I was good at school too. I had straight A's and A's and B's. Like getting older, I was really good at math. I was in advanced classes, but I was like a jock for sure. I was like captain of all my teams, but I didn't have like someone to like look up to of that, so I don't know where it came from. And then like my little sister, she was more of like, yeah, I'll dabble in it, but she could quit like half season, not care. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't like that. Like I never missed a day of school. I like had to be captain of the team. I was leading scorer. I was leading defender. I was the first one at the end of the court, first one at the end of the field, first one back for, in the court. So I don't know. I think I just really liked setting goals. Like I just saw like when you're a little kid, in like elementary school, like if you did well in class, like you got more responsibilities. Like you got to like hand out the papers. Like, so if the teacher liked you and you did a good job and you got good grades or let's just say you were number one in gym class or whatever, like the teacher would use you for whatever, or she would use you as an example, or you got to go run to the principal's office. Like, so I liked the extra tasks that you would get by doing a good job, like the reward, right? So, and then like you got to hang out with the teachers. So now the teachers would talk to you more like, oh, you did a really good job. Or the gym teacher would talk to you more, or your coach would talk to you more, or you could strategize with the coach now about the field hockey game or whatever. So I really liked that,
A lot of like growing up in a small town in Canada as well, and when you're doing sports, a big part of it becomes like your parents and your family, because you got to be at 6 a.m. practices. You got to get there. Were they driving you and supporting it a lot as well? I mean, also in small towns like where I lived, especially like the outdoor sports, you would just walk yourself half the time too.
Yeah. So it's so funny. Like this just totally brought back a memory. Like mine was like the opposite. Like I feel like my mom like came to my sports, but like she wasn't like really watching. She was like, that's my daughter. But then she'd be like, so when's your race? I'm like, Mom, I just won 800. Like, did you not see it? And like, what are you looking at, Or she'd be like, oh, what's your next race? I'd be like, 200 meter. And then she'd be like, how many laps is that? I'm like, it's half a lap, and you've been coming to track for the past 4 years. You know what I mean? So it was just like funny. Like she wasn't like really like into like she didn't really know what's going on.
Maybe just not understanding the sports.
Or like after a basketball game, we'd lose by like a point or something. She's like, why didn't you guys just score like one more? Then you guys could have been tied. I'm like, well, we were trying. Like,
it's much easier said than done.
Yeah. So it just, but like, it was so funny. Like my mom refused to drive in snow. Okay. So I had basketball season, and basketball in our school was like football to like other schools, So basketball was like a big deal. Like you could be like drunk driving, cop would pull you over and be like, oh, basketball player, you have game this week. Like you're good to go. Like it's like that type of town.
What was the population there?
I don't know.
Like,
but like
under
my
10,000.
My graduating class was like 250.
Okay, so probably 30,000.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, like our town, like basketball is huge. So my mom like hated driving in snow. So like, I don't know, she would like almost like use that drive like against me. Like she'd be like like right before I'd be going to basketball practice, I would be like, she'd be like, did you do blah, 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 like the cat litter box or whatever? And I'd be like, can I do it when I get back? Was that an attitude? I'm not taking you to basketball. You know what I mean? Like she would like use that. I hated it. Like I hated it. I would never do this to my kids. But like she would like use it. Or if it would snow, she'd be like, I'm not driving in the snow. Blah, blah. My coach had to sometimes pick me up because my mom like wouldn't drive me. Like just childhood trauma right there. But
maybe living in that area, the snow, it can be dangerous as well. I mean, you get the black ice.
And we would get 2 inches and she'd be
okay.
like, I'm not driving. I'm like, I call my coach and be like, my mom's not driving. She won't even drive in rain. What anything that's more than a 1-lane street, she can't drive on.
I see. Even I don't know what it was about back then. Even my mother,
yeah,
she could drive, but she couldn't drive on the highway. And my aunt doesn't even drive. Yeah. I don't know what it was. Maybe it could have been the cars back then. Think about them too. They weren't.
I don't know.
They weren't that safe.
I don't know. I think it's like my mom's like homebody. Like my dad, like he just kind of like goes with the flow. But like none of them were like crazy athletes.
What were they doing for work in these smaller towns? Like,
so my dad was just a teacher. So he was like an advanced biology teacher. My mom was just a stay-at-home mom. And then we were really fortunate. Like my grandpa had like land, and which. Now that I'm in real estate, I'm like, it was probably like $10, but in Pennsylvania. But anyway, like we had land. My grandpa like built them a house like with my dad. Like so my dad and my grandpa built this house. And so it looked like we had money because it was a really nice house, but it was really because like my grandpa built it. We didn't have like a house payment. So like we could use that money for other things, But so we didn't have a mortgage. We didn't have any of that. So then we had like nice things, but like people always thought we were loaded, but like it was just my dad that worked, we weren't at all. But
I think with inflation back then, you can get away with it. I think like 40 grand back then is probably equivalent to $1 million today. It was, back then it was crazy. My father too, he worked. My mom didn't, but I mean, the cost of stuff back then was like ridiculous compared to what today is. I mean, in the 1980s, you probably could have bought a house for 50 grand, and it's probably worth $3 million today.
I know
for sure.
Yeah,
crazy. It's we live in a much different.
When I was like growing up, we have like this amazing neighborhood. It's like called Loxmont. So it's like up on these rolling hills. You can see all of the Susquehanna River. Like it's like really, really expensive, right? So I think these houses were like 900,000 to $1 million,
back
right?
Then.
Yeah, like when I was a little bit younger, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, and I was like, what? But in my head, I'm like, oh, that would be impossible to buy $1 million house. Now, like my properties are like 2.5 mil, and like they're like the size of probably the garage of that mansion, Like it's just so funny. It's just so funny, like growing up and seeing like the mansions, and now how much real estate is in San Diego. Like such a difference. I just saw this little post, this meme or whatever, and it was like the guy was like, oh, I'm just on my drive looking at real estate in Pacific Beach to see what I can afford, and then it shows like a lazy boy like on the beach at Pacific Beach, and then it showed like this little shed that was in like the backyard, because it's insane expensive in PB. It is insane. But
how did you get into that? Because now you're talking about that you're not waiting the extra 4 years to go to the Olympics. So I'm assuming this is when you're getting into this real estate stuff.
Yeah.
You have the option to do whatever you want at this point. You can start another business. You can get into real estate, maybe stocks, maybe go do a corporate gig. Why did you take the real estate route?
Yeah, so it was, when was it? It was right after, so they added the Olympics in 2020, my weight class. But I was already practicing MMA, right? So I was already practicing MMA for the last 3 years. So then I was just like, do I go back? Like, do I go back to boxing? So then I was just like, screw it. If everybody was calling me, like old boxing coaches were like, dude, you could totally win this. They're like, yeah, politics are going to be quite interesting because there's a new national champ for 3 years. And they're like, but you could totally beat this person and blah, 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 not to go into all politics, whatever. But I was like, no, the politics are going to be so heavy. Like, I'm not going to do it, And then I was just like, I hang up the phone, then I pick it back up. I was like, let's do it. So then I went back to boxing. I didn't box for 3 years. because I was just focusing on like jiu-jitsu, then kicking, and then I popped my knee out. That was like 10 months. And now I just came back to boxing. And then, so I went to Olympic trials and I won. So I won Olympic trials, and there's like 3 rounds of Olympic trials. So since I won the first one, I didn't have to go until finals. So then I went to finals, won all my, long story short, I won all my fights. Current national champ wins all her fights. And then I had to beat the winner of the losers bracket. Beat her like
in the U.S. This U.S. on
U.S. Yeah. So it was like double elimination. So I won all my fights. She won all her fights. We fight each other. The most boring fight ever. She ran away the whole time. And then just no action at all. Lefty. Didn't practice against any lefties. Back then, lefties were a problem for me. So then I had to fight the winner of the loser bracket the next day. Beat her absolutely unanimously. Like, just beat her unanimously. Like, face didn't get touched once. Mine didn't. My coaches were like, oh, it's a clean win, like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, it was an amazing win. And then they gave it to the other girl.
Why?
To kick me out, so that because the next day I would be fighting that national champion again because it was double elimination.
What's the point? What was their motivation to do that?
So I didn't get another opportunity to beat out their national champ.
They didn't want you there? There's a reason?
Well, it's political. That's politics. So
as in the other girl might have had that on her side, her advantage. There's somebody in her back pocket.
So like, if somebody's a current national champ, I've seen it with my own eyes.
Okay, I get it.
I was on Team USA. I've seen my teammates lose hardcore. But because they were on the team for like 3 years, 2 years, 10-year national champ, whatever, if a new chick comes and beats them, they're like...
Maybe they've invested in so much
Exactly.
on the social media side, building them up.
It's not even just social media. It's just like, well, they know that person. They know they're serious in training, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was just or like they're younger. Or like, oh, this person's going to stay for the next Olympics. You know what I mean? So just very political. But so after that, I was like, that's it. I'm like, I'm going to start. I'm like, I just got robbed again, after 2 Olympics. And I'm like, going for the Olympics. I just felt in my heart that I was robbed. We'll just say that. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to not work anymore. Like, I can't just keep relying on this fighting stuff, So then I was just like, I'm going to do my idea. So then I did a commercial. I was doing like some modeling stuff, commercial stuff, and I got like a good gig and I got a good chunk of money. So I was like, okay, awesome. I'm going to use this towards my first property, right? So I didn't buy a property, but I did arbitrage. It's huge now. It's so annoying because like 4 or 5 years ago, like nobody talked about arbitrage.
But even before that, so you got your guys like Grant Cardone that are giving this advice, and a lot of social media players out there as well. What was your influence to be like, you know what, I'm also going to go down that route of getting into real estate?
So no influence at all. It was just by experience. I lived in PB, and when I was on Team USA, when I first moved to PB, I actually moved into someone else's place, right, and rented a room. I was like 24.
PB being Pacific
Beach, yeah. So when I moved there, I lived in someone else's place, and then like I made the room like my own. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then 2 months later, the guy that rented me the room was like, oh yeah, by the way, I just broke up with my girlfriend. I'm coming back, and I'm like, what? And then I was like, I thought I just signed a year lease. He's like, well, yeah, if I was going to stay with my girlfriend. He's like, you just sublet it. I'm like, you never told me this was a sublet. And then, so I got kicked out. So I was like, I'm never going to put myself in that situation again. I'm going to get myself like a 3-bedroom place or a 2-bedroom place. And I was younger, and this was when I first started boxing. So I was just like, well, if I get a 3-bedroom place, then the rent will be cheaper. So I'm going to get a 3-bedroom place. So I got a 3-bedroom place. But I was like, I can't afford at that time to get a 3-bedroom place. And then I need roommates. How am I going to find roommates? So I'm like looking up 3-bedroom apartments in PB, and I'm putting a fake post on Craigslist being like, looking for roommates in a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house, So like all these people are messaging me like, hey, when can I come see the place? And I'm like, I don't even have a place yet. So I'm hurry up and I'm like interviewing all these landlords, looking at their places. They're like, who are your roommates? Yeah, I have 2 roommates. You know, I'm just like playing both sides. So then I finally met these 2 guys, separate interviews, and they're like, yeah, are we going to meet at the place? And I was like, no, let's meet at a coffee shop. And, you know, and they're like, oh, okay. They thought like safety purposes. So then I'm like, you just have to trust me. I'm getting a 3-bedroom place. Like, just trust me. Like, but I need your name to be like on the lease, like to get this. So I found these 2 guys. One was like a minor league baseball player guy. And then the other one was like an engineer student. So like, it was perfect. Like, they trusted me. I was like, look, I'll furnish it, blah, blah. So then we all moved into this 3-bedroom place. So rent was like cheaper. And then whenever someone would move out, I would be like, I think I could raise the rent a little bit, you know, because I see what the market rate is. So I would raise the rent to that room.
So you have control of the lease, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. So I paid the full rent, right?
So is it like you're paying the full rent and you're renting to them?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yep. So then they would move out, and I wouldn't even put their names on the lease, you know, but it would be my responsibility if someone didn't pay. So it's like a little bit risky. So then then the next roommate moved out like a year and a half later or whatever. So when they moved out, then I raised their rent by like $200. So then I got the next tenant, you know, obviously paying extra rent. So I kept doing that I lived there for like 7 years or something.
And none of this, it doesn't sound that planned. It kind of just, you went with the flow, meaning like, wait a minute, someone's left. All right, let me raise it up. And then it just kept snowballing.
Yeah. So like that kept happening every like whatever, 6 months, 4 months, like somebody would, you know, go move in with their girlfriend or something. So I'm like, all right, so I get a new roommate, raise the rent or whatever. Or somebody would be moving back to the East Coast. When they would leave, I'd raise the rent. So it just kept going like that. And then I was just like, man, there is like a market for furnished housing. You know, like there's so many people that were reaching out to me, even at the higher rent prices. So then, so that's what I did. Like my whole fight career, which made me not pay rent. And then I remember on a couple of the properties that, because I would always get 3 bedrooms, I would actually make money. So my rent was free, and I would make like an additional $300-400. And I'm like, there's like a business model for this, you know? And then even when I moved to Orange County, my first year of MMA, I moved up there to train up there. I did the same thing. I got a 3-bedroom place, found people that wanted it fully furnished. They paid a way extra. My rent was free, and I made like $400. So that really helped me my whole fighting career, was doing that type of business model. And I'm like, you know, I don't come from a rich family. I'm like, how on earth could I get properties? Like, I just wish I could get a whole apartment building, and they just trusted me that I was going to fill everything and that I could give them what they wanted, but then I would profit. So then I remember there was like a little studio across the street, and it was for rent. And then I said to my friend, I was like, you should rent this. Like, it's really nice. It's right on the water, and it's really cheap. It was only like $1,300. And then we go inside, we look at it, and they were like, oh, this place is like a crap hole. And then I was just like, this is a gold mine. Like, this is like right on the water, right on the park. Like, this is amazing. So I was like, if you don't rent it, I'm going to rent it. So I rented it, put my name on it, and I totally remodeled the whole place. Like, it was a crap hole. I put granite countertops. I put backsplashes. I did like vessel bowl sinks in the bathroom. I put like new laminate flooring down. I painted like old gross cabinets. Like, I caulked every crack.
You're doing this all on your own.
All on my own dollar. So it was like a little bit risky, but I had like a big check from like a modeling thing. So I was like, all right, like I feel confident that like I can pay the deposit. And if I didn't have a renter for a year, I could afford it. And I can pay for, you know, as long as I do all the upgrades myself. I was finding like homeless guys on Craigslist to like cut the granite for me, like out of their back of their van, and like just like crazy stuff. And then like this one guy, like he was homeless, and I was like, I'll let you live here if you work for me for like X amount of dollars an hour, you know? And he's like, all right, you know, so it was like crazy, like to start.
It didn't turn into like a meth lab at any point. Maybe.
Questionable.
Possibly it was.
It was like, we saw a shoe cleaner. I'm like, what? This guy's definitely not buffing his shoes, you know?
Yeah.
Like that.
This guy doesn't have shoes.
That's it. I was like, his shoes aren't leather. Like, what is he buffing? So yeah, questionable. I could write a book about my real estate journey for sure. It'd be called like Craigslist, you know. But anyway, yeah. So I remodeled that whole place. I learned how to build like really cool furniture. Like, I was like getting furniture from Craigslist back then. Now there's OfferUp, and then like remodeling, like repainting it, doing all this stuff. And then I would charge, like, I'd be like, let's see if I can get 2,400. And then boom, I would get like 50,000 people responding for $1,000 more. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm making $1,000 a month. And I would do short term. So it would be like 2 months or 3 months. So then when they stopped, I was like, okay, I had so many people that wanted it for 24 when I'm only paying 13. Let's see, next month, I'm going to put it up to 3,300 a month. And then I still got tons of people responding. I'm like, oh, but that's exactly what I did with the rentals, right? So for the rooms, I would see how far I could push it. And I would raise it like 100 or 200 or whatever.
Were you analyzing the market or just kind of guessing?
The whole time.
You're at least checking similar.
Well, no, the whole time that I was renting out the rooms, you know, that I was living in the property, I was always like pushing the meter, you know, and seeing how high.
No matter what, you would always live in the property and then rent out these rooms, so you had a little bit of control.
So I had control. Yeah. That's how I was educated on like, what prices to charge. But the studio that was across the street, I didn't live in that one, of course. But I was able to see like, okay, well, I see what it's going for. I looked at the market. So that's why I charged 23. But then mine was so nice that I was like, I think I could charge 33. So now I was profiting like 2,200.
What age were you at this point, or what year was this?
This was 2019.
So quite recent, just getting into the game.
Yeah, dude. I could write a book about how I went from like zero to like over $1 million in like
it goes
3 years. It was insane.
How long did it take until you and talk about that part of the story, your first rental property in which you actually purchased, and maybe even working? I don't know how detailed you can get, but I'll understand it, and hopefully my audience is educated enough. I think they are understanding like the financial side in terms of like the mortgage rate you're getting and what you had to kind of put down, because that's where a lot of people. They look at the real estate space and they just think, well, I got zero, so this will never work for me. But
if you have zero, it's absolutely not going to work for you in San Diego. Maybe somewhere else, but like what I had to do, because I had zero, I had to use other people's properties. So I was like, okay, so the only way that I can create a legitimate business as doing this, what they call these days arbitrage, which is you're taking on someone else's property. You're having an agreement that you are giving me permission to sublease, right? But in the beginning, I was just like, no one's going to trust me because I don't have a portfolio. I can't be like, well, I've been doing this since I was, like you can't do that. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to do like 4 kind of under the table of figuring out like, okay, can I do this? Can I create a portfolio to show landlords, look, I have 4 properties. Like this is the before, this is the after. It's on my dollar. It's free property management, blah, blah. I got a whole pitch. And then I was ballsy enough to be like, okay, this one's filling, so I'm going to take another one. And then I filled that one. I furnished it, fixed it up. Boom, it filled. I'm like, should I take another one? No lie. There was like a for rent sign in the trash of like the one I just did construction of. And I was like, this is God telling me I'm doing another one. So then I did another one and another one. I was probably at like 6 properties, right? So I was like, now I can actually go to landlords and be like, hey, I have a portfolio of 6. Here's the videos, before and afters, blah, blah. So then when I did that, then a landlord would be like, you know what? I'm going to give you all 3 of my properties. So then they give me 3. So now I had like 9. And I was like, holy crap, this is insane. Then I would go to another landlord and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I love what you did. And they're like, what's the catch? I'm like, nothing, is free to you, blah, blah, blah. Had this whole pitch. I'm like, I'm on Team USA, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then I was like, yeah, going after MMA, blah, blah, blah. So like then they could trust me. They could see the check mark. They could see my Wikipedia. They could see that I was, driven. And so then they'd give me their property. And then that person would tell their friend that, and it just kept growing, right? So then I got like all the way up to like, I don't even know, like 25 properties. All not mine. None were mine.
Pure arbitrage.
Just pure arbitrage. Like I would pay a landlord like $2,500 and then I would charge like $5,500 or $7,500. Or I would make the attic a bedroom. I would make the attic a bedroom, make it really nice, and then I would rent out the attic. Or like there was a room that had French doors, and I would like frame it off, make that a bedroom. So it was insane. So I was making a lot of money. So then so I didn't have zero. So I was able to buy a property in PB because I saved a lot.
Yeah, you're growing that capital.
Yeah. So to get a property, like you'd have to have a down payment. Yeah. I'm sure like if you're like
usually it's like what, 25% in the US?
Well, sometimes on your first home, I know there's a lot of good deals on your first home.
Do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you have to go to the bathroom? I can tell sometimes. Hong Nam. Oh no. Okay, I wasn't sure. I thought you were sick. Usually I can read. I'm like, something's not right. You're okay? I'm okay. The cameras are okay? Okay, sorry. We'll continue. I thought our production guy might have had to go to the bathroom. Just jumped in quick. So now, okay, let's go back to that. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Yeah. I'm like, I think he might have to go to the bathroom. So you're rolling this over. You're making it from the arbitrage, which is kind of building your capital and your portfolio, and that's what you're getting into that part of the story, which is going to be your initial to purchase your first home. Yeah.
So I saved a lot of money, and then there was this one property that I was arbitraging, managing. I was managing 2 of the 3 units on the property. One was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, and the other one was a studio. And then in the back there was a studio, but that person lived there for like 6 years. So I didn't manage that one. But so when I took on that property, the owner was like, yes, you can manage both. So I did, and it was like total slumlord, like just really, they didn't upkeep it at all. They even lowered the price to like, before they rented it to me, he lowered the price $1,000 because he didn't feel like fixing it up. So then he told the tenant in the back, like, hey, you post this for rent at this price, and like you fill it. And then he's like, are you sure you want this price? There's going to be thousands of people reaching out. And I was one of those thousands. But then that guy recognized my name because he's a boxing fan, and he emailed me out of like thousands of people. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, I saw Danyelle Wolf. And he's like, you're the boxer. I see you at the gym training. And then I was like, thank goodness, like, if it was all for something,
there it is.
Yeah. I didn't get to go to the freaking
so
Olympics twice.
It paid off. At the end, it definitely paid off.
Yeah. But yeah, so I managed that property for him. I put so many hours into it. Like, oh my gosh. Like, just like on my hands and knees, mulching, weeding, painting. I went through like 30 tubes of caulk, to like caulk cracks. Like over 30 tubes. That's insane. Like that, if anyone knows what that is, like that's insane. Like, so like I fixed up the whole property. It was so old, but like I fixed it all up. And then, but I was making so much money on this property. I was making like 16,000 at that time. It was like a lot. No, 12,000.
How many rooms are built?
So like the guy wanted like, I don't know, let's just say 2,000 for like the house. And I was making like 7,200.
Okay, so it's an entire house.
Yeah, it's an entire house. So like he wanted 2,000, I was making like 7,200. And then the studio, he wanted like 1,100, and I was making 4,000 almost. So and then I know how much I can get for the back studio if I were to buy it. So then I'm like doing the numbers, and I was just like, okay, wait a second. So if I could make 4, 4, and 7, and then I did this crazy thing. I built like a whole ADU and bathrooms like once I bought it, but which added another 4,000. But I was just like, if I would build an ADU, build this, do this, I could make 18,000. And if I could make 18,000, and then it's, I thought it was going to be 20% down, but my first loan was only 15% down. And I was lucky enough, like I said, to buy it in March, what we were talking about earlier. And that interest rates were only at like 3.5. Yeah, so thank goodness. Like that's like my retirement, That's
not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm never touching it. I'm never getting rid of it. But
and they signed you to a 30-year at 3.5.
30-year fix, yep.
Wow.
Yeah, insane.
Oh, wow.
Insane.
Someone messenger on the podcast. There's someone from Real Estate watching this.
Yeah, insane.
Might hit you up.
So but anyway, yeah, and then so I was managing that, so I did numbers. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I could pay a mortgage instead of just paying this guy rent, So I said to the owner, I was like, if you ever want to sell this sometime, like please give me first shot, And he's like, well, like his mom was in hospice. Like the mom was like the Real Estate Mogul. So he was like, well, she's in hospice, which isn't good. And he's like, so if anything ever happens, like I'll let you know first. So then he did. Like he did stick to his word, which was really cool. And he let me know first. And like that property, it could have sold for like 2.2. So it could have sold for a lot more, but he gave me an amazing deal, like 1.725. And then interest rates were low. So, I mean, you have a mortgage that's at like, $7,500 a month, so then everything is, so it's pretty crazy. It's crazy. So as long as you fix up your places like really nice, Like I told you, like I was making the outdoor areas like very Tulum style, but like everything I get is like, you know, I'll find like really high quality like wood furniture. I'll redo it, restore it myself. Like seriously, it could be its own reality show, you know? It's just like an HTV show. It's like, we're going to get this house and like, instead of like spending $500,000 to remodel it, we're going to just like knock this wall down, do vaulted ceilings, which all you have to do is knock the ceilings down. We're going to keep the beams. Like everything's going to be original. Like you can do stuff so affordable, you know?
Yeah,
Instead
but you got to
of-
roll up your sleeves too. Cause,
oh my
the
gosh.
cost of you having to pay, let someone else do that,
Yeah.
it doesn't even, now it's not going to make sense.
Like that one property I did, that would have been probably $500,000.
Yeah.
And I did it in like 70,000.
How much time did you put into it? Like if you were to really count your time.
So the one property was probably 24/7 for 3.5 months.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but my builder friend was like, I would have taken a year. And he's like, and I would have charged $500,000.
How were you working like
24/7.
So you're not going to that was your exercise.
I didn't train this whole
Yeah,
the whole year.
Okay.
So this whole year I took off 24/7. You know, people are like, oh, why aren't you training? Oh, you quit. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, I have like bigger fish right now to fry, and to do this and to save $500,000, I'm gonna do it myself. So I was like the GC. So I hire all the workers, all the laborers, and then I pick up all the materials, like just crazy stuff. I mean, like you're renting these huge trucks and just like, you know, $6,000 worth of lumber, like building decks and pergolas and all this stuff, and and you're learning as you go. You're like, oh, I'm going to cut this, and boom, all the wood falls down. And then you realize you're like, this wasn't the wood I ordered. Now you got to put all the wood back up, like going, like, what the heck? Like just so many crazy stories. And you get like great workers and you get crazy workers. And then like, I mean, it seriously could have been a reality show.
But now it's all up and running. It's operational.
Everything, yeah. All 7 of my units are like amazing. Like I have all the video tours. Yeah, all rented out. And then I arbitrage 13, so I still have 13 properties that other people gave me. So yeah, I have 20 properties now that I run.
How much time do you need to kind of put into that on the management side per day? Like even from here in Thailand. You got to get on the phone at least. Well, I guess the time zone difference between here and LA sucks.
Yeah, it is. It's like if I want to go to bed at 9, it's like I can only talk to people like 9 to 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And then when I wake up, everybody wants to chat from like 7 to 10 a.m. or 7 to 9 a.m.
Well, at least in Thailand, like, because I get up early. I'm up at 4:35 just naturally. So it depends, like, how you're getting your sleep.
Yeah.
But it's always getting up earlier will definitely align better back to the States.
Yeah. But it's tough because I want to go to bed early. But then everybody's messaging me at 10 p.m. And I'm like, if I'm waking up, like, because right now I've been waking up at 6 a.m. every day. I just, like, locked into this sleep schedule. Usually I'm a night owl, and I sleep till, like, 8:30 or 8. But, like, now I've been waking up at, like, 6 or 5 a.m. every single day. That's like a whole other discussion. Like, do I want to be a morning person? And now I'm trying out the morning person thing for the past 2 weeks. And I'm like, I wake up at like 6 when normally I like to wake up at 8. But when you wake up at 8, you can stay up till midnight and you get a lot of stuff done, you know, and like it's quiet and still. And then you wake up at 8 and then you feel good all day. I don't need to nap. But if I wake up at 6, then I have to go to bed like freaking like 10.
Yeah.
You know, or I wish I would wake up at 6, but then I'll wake up at 5:30 or 5. So then you have to go to bed at 9. And then you have to take a nap at like 12:30. Like I'll train like 7 to like 8:30 a.m. Okay. And then like I'll eat something and then I'll like zone out for like 30 minutes watching cat videos. And then I'm just like, do I have to go to sleep right now? I'm like, what is wrong with me? It's only 12:30. And then I'll like fight it till like 1. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go sleep. And then I go sleep. So I'm like, I'm losing an hour and a half anyway. Mm-hmm. So I might as well stay up till 12, which is what I like to do. And then wake up at 8 because or like everyone's like, oh, be a morning person. All the billionaires are a morning person. Mm-hmm. But then I wake up at 5 or 6, but then I just have to take a nap.
See, that's why I take cordyceps. This shit is everyone is a lot of the people, especially at Bangtao. Then because I get the same problem. Like I'll train in the morning. I don't eat till 12 or 1. But then when I eat, I want to sleep right after. Mm-hmm. But I'll take cordyceps and it kind of just hits you again, and you get like another wave, and you just bypass it.
Yeah.
And then, but by like 9 o'clock, 9:30, like my brain just shuts off.
Yeah.
And
But see, like before, like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm like made for mornings because like I feel like my brain is like a little bit like woozy, like waking up this early. Like I don't feel
well, it
that
depends.
smart.
If usually night people, they're more cat people than dog people.
Oh, yeah?
Are you a cat person or a dog person?
I like both.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there you go.
I like both. I think they're both funny. But yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Like when I sleep till 8, like I'm good. I'm good all day. Don't need a nap. And then, man, I'm like sharp. I'm with it, you know? But I feel like waking up so early, I'm not like droggy. Like when I wake up, I'm like, yeah, you know, like, and I'm training, like eyes aren't puffy or anything. I'm good. Well, since I've been out here.
How much coffee are you drinking?
0.
You don't drink any coffee?
No, no caffeine.
Wow.
I don't drink any caffeine. I don't take supplements. I don't take vitamins, nothing. I live on like eggs, spinach. Now out here, I have chicken and sweet potato and brown rice, which I love. You know, I hate America's chicken breasts. Like our chicken breasts are like this thick, but like out here, the chicken's this thin, and I love it. I would eat chicken all the time. I never eat chicken in the U.S. because it's like this thick, and it's just like, ugh. But out here, it's thin. I love it. I could eat it. I eat it every day.
Yeah, I don't know if it's how much GMOs involved with it over here. A
Are
lot
they
of it
just
is very
slicing
local.
it or what? What are they doing?
I don't
is
think
it
it's
so
all
thin
jacked up on
cuts?
steroids like back home. I think you don't know what's going on in the chicken farms. There's a lot of mouths to feed back there, right? Here, a lot of it's local too. That's what's like with Thailand. Like everything is not coming from that far away. Like there's pig farms that are 5 minutes away. There's chicken farms. A lot of the eggs here, like that. If you really wanted to get fresh eggs, you don't need to go to the market. You can kind of just go to these like wet markets around here. So everything's quite fresh and quite local.
Yeah.
The chicken, I prefer to get like the whole chicken. I like chicken on the bone.
Yeah.
Something about chicken breast always tastes a bit rubbery to me.
The thick ones, I think. Yeah. I like the thin ones. I don't know.
Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. I think we went over an hour. See, it goes.
We didn't even talk about UFC or anything.
We didn't get to it. We'll have to do it. Let's see. Joey's probably here. Joey, are you here? Joe, oh, see, she's here. What time is it? 3:20. We must have done an hour. See, it goes too fast.
I know. We talked about real estate.
I guess. Well, I'm assuming you'll be back. At some point. I'm not going anywhere. I'm in Thailand. I found my little base. We're in the midst of moving this whole studio and we're getting a villa. So maybe next time you'll come to the villa studio.
Yeah.
We're building it all out. We'd love to have you back. I think I'm assuming so. We'll try to touch on this quick just before we jump out of it.
Yeah.
Why you're even in Thailand? We didn't even talk about any of that. Let's try to talk about that part quick before Joey kills me over there. You're in Thailand now. You're here for training, but that part of the story, have you come here just to kind of get some R&R and escape that, or what was the whole purpose of coming over here, or are you training for a fight?
Yeah, so like as you know, I won Dana White's Contender series, and then after that, had an injury, tore my UCL in my arm, so I had to recover from that. And then once I recovered, then Dana gave me the fight on the Nate Diaz card, which was last September. So then went into that first time ever. So again in the UFC with one fight. So it was like very like, whoa, this is crazy. But it was awesome. It was an awesome experience. Everyone's like, oh, you need more experience. And I was just like, dude, like you only live once. Like you're not gonna die. Like just, it's fine. I'm down for any challenge. I started boxing with no experience. Boom, made national champion, traveled around the world, nonstop champion. Went to Contender series on TV, 0 fights. You know what I mean? Like won my first fight. Was on the Nate Diaz card, the biggest card of like the year. And yeah, I was like, I'll take it. Yeah, I'll go for it. I think it was a really boring fight. I mean, like nothing happened, and I learned so much. Though I learned so much. Like I thought it could be an hour of a talk, but
do you think you're gonna do it again?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So, but then, like I said, during that camp, like I was cutting weight in a sauna, like a sauna suit, like just zipped up, like this, like in escrow.
So
are
you cutting? You're cutting hard to featherweight.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And because
now I'm bigger. When I started doing MMA, man, I got so much bigger, like more muscles, like. Because boxing is just like, blah, 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 and then you're like running all the time and like, blah, 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 blah.
It's from the wrestling, maybe.
yeah,
Like,
but like
just-
pulling
yeah.
and pushing, like just like all that, you know, burpees, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so just, I just think like my whole life, I was never like lifting stuff. I was never lifting weights. So I was always just running, sprinting, boxing, all cardio, cardio, cardio. So then when I started doing MMA, like my body, like I've been like built and jacked since I was like 6. Like if you, I think I have a picture on my Instagram when I was 6. I was same build, but like 6, you know? People are like, oh, were you a gymnast? Like, no. Did you swim? No. Like I was just jacked, like always, because I was just so active. But anyway, yeah, but so if I do like the lightest weights, like I'll gain muscle, you know, I'll get like huge, you know? Like right now I'm pretty big, like,
So you
but
don't want to be lifting weights.
no, I can't lift weights. Like if I see someone lifting weights, I gain like 3 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
Like I can't lift weights. But anyway, I like to do like F45 type style stuff, like combat conditioning, like just very like cardio based. But anyway, where was I?
So
Where were we?
they're talking now. Are you?
Oh
here
yeah, so I was
training for the
cutting
next-
weight. Yeah. So I was cutting weight for that fight.
Yeah.
So I was cutting weight pretty hard. I was in escrow for that property. I did the fight, boring fight. Definitely gonna be different next time. After that fight, then I came back, went straight into construction for this whole year. So for the 3 properties, it took me 3.5 months. Then I took off for Christmas for like 2 weeks, and then jumped right back into construction on the first property. Built out whole ADU, everything. That was 4 units. So that took 4 months, and then boom, here we are. So yeah, I'm appreciative they have been patient with me and everything, but I had to take those opportunities. That was once in a
So
lifetime.
the UFC knows they're
Yeah.
waiting. You haven't signed any contracts, or at least you're not allowed to announce it yet, or
Yeah, no. So now like I've learned my lesson, to just be like, okay, get back into training, get in shape, figure out like who's working with you, get your drilling partners, round up, you know what I mean? Because I used to think the opposite. I used to be like, okay, I'm gonna announce the fight, like to my like, you know, teammates and stuff to get everybody on board that way, right? Because that's like the only way sometimes to get people on board, you know?
they want to know something's in the pipeline.
Yeah. And I feel like with me, there's always something in the pipeline. You know, it's like, well, if you're in the UFC, something's always in the pipeline. You need to be, you know, training. But some people, they kind of need that fire under their butts to be like, okay, like, yes, I know you have like 8-10-year-old fights this weekend, but we have a fight coming up in like 3 months. So like we need to like get in the schedule, you know? So it's difficult. And then people have jobs, you know, and then people, you know, they're personal trainers or they run a gym, and, you know, so it's tough. It's tough to get in people's schedules. But
So the UFC, when you signed they signed you like a 3 contract deal, and then they will offer you the fight and you have to decide whether you take it, or
yeah, you kind of just, from my experience, like you just tell them like, hey, I'm ready. All right. And then they'll be like, all right, 2 months or 3 months from now. Yeah. So no, I'm really appreciative of that. And I think they understand like I'm going after more than just fighting. Like
What do you think's happening in that division? Because the division's quite quiet. I mean, Amanda's retired. She came up. Cyborg was there, but there's not. It's how often there's featherweight fights. It's got to be maybe once every 3 or 4 months. There's not a big talent pool of featherweight fighters.
Yeah.
So before we wrap it up on that side, because I could talk about that for an hour, the whole featherweight pool, and even what's your goal right now? Is it, you know what, I just want to do a couple fights, or do you have dreams and aspirations going for the featherweight belt?
Yeah, no, I definitely know I can get the featherweight belt.
Here we go.
Yeah. So, you know, I came back here to Thailand just pretty much to just get excited again. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, like, back home, you can get sleepy. Like I said, like, unless you have a fight, like, on the books, like, it's hard to get people together. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Thailand. It's going to be kind of like just a reminder of, like, how much I love the sport. You know, I love it out here because of how active everyone is. Like, I mean, you walk into Tiger, it's not sleepy. You know what I mean? There's, like, 500 people, like, just getting after it. Like, I just love that energy, you know? And it's just like all the time. Like if you're like, hey, I want to train today at like freaking 7 a.m. and I want to train at 12 and I want to train at 3 and I'm going to go shadow at 6. Like you can, you know, like back home, it's like, is anybody showing up to pro class today? You show up, there's like 2 people. Like, hey, can I get in your schedule? Oh no, I'm training like 10 kids and, you know, like, or somebody has a fight this weekend. Like, so it's just tough.
It's hard to
you
get
know?
into the rhythm.
Yeah,
as well,
yeah. So I was like, I want to come out here. I want to get into that rhythm. And then, you know, when I go back, I'm going to try to find the same rhythm, you know. It's so important. Like, so now that I don't work all the time, like before, like I'd be on the treadmill, like on the phone working, you know, like just trying to set up where I'm at now. Right. So I was just always on the phone. Like right after practice, I had to jet, you know, I was present at practice. Like I was like killing it, whatever, at every practice.
Checking the phone between sessions, like sets.
At the end,
I do this all the
for
time.
my fight, I was like, because I was in escrow.
And then you end up working out, but you leave and you're like, did I even work out? What even happened?
That's how I am when I
get this
drive.
at the gym all the time, where it's like, I'll get to you get to the gym and you're like, hey, I just need to clear this stuff, and then like you're on your phone for 30 minutes clearing shit.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, I've been here like an hour. What's going on?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's when you get so passionate about something, like you're in your real estate.
Yeah.
Pulling your, like for me to pull myself away from here to go to the gym, I want to, but it's so difficult. I'm like, but I have so much shit to do. Yeah. I'm sure you understand what I mean.
But now I got my business to a point where I can walk away, which that was my goal. So like now I'm excited to like go back to San Diego, which I've never been in San Diego yet like this, that I can like go to training now, and then I can like hang out for like a little bit afterwards. You know what I mean? Like before I'd be like, all right, see you guys. Like I would go in, do my work, you know, hard. But then I would be out, you know, because I had to work, you know. It's not like I don't like my teammates, or I don't like to like mingle, or I don't like to whatever. But like I just had to go to work, you know. I had to work all the time. But now like I can be retired and focus on training full time, you know. Of course I have debt I have to pay off, because I did probably 5 years worth of work in 1 year, you know. So yes, I'm like pretty much bankrolling every single month for the next, you know, half a year.
But the machine's running itself now.
Yeah. But now it's good. I do want to do a couple things on the admin side, like a website and stuff. And then it's just easy stuff, you know. Like before I was like, it's all physical, hard labor, you know. Like I had to leave so I could go do this and and like pick up like 50 sheets of drywall and like just crazy stuff, you know. But now it's like, now all the hard work's done, you know. Now it's just like I might have to take some emails, some calls, you know, send my portfolio.
Well, you can outsource. If you got the cash flow, you can outsource more, any of the digital stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, especially now today when we have access to these things like your Fivers and your upports.
Fiverr, I know.
Just makes life easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to find the right people. But it takes time finding the right people in those stuff. You might go through 20 guys doing your Instagram or whatever. And
I might have to talk to you who does, if you know any website guys from Fiverr.
There's a company in Phuket, but I'm doing like e-commerce now, so really complicated.
Because I feel like making videos and stuff like that, Fiverr, fine, but doing a website, if you could just sit beside someone, you could kill it in a second. And I already designed it all and like blah blah blah, but I have a small version of it already made. Yeah. But now I need to put all 20 properties on it. You know what I mean?
I gotta. I won't mention their name on this podcast yet. I'll let you know, because I'm working with them and I don't want them to get flooded. Let me finish with them first.
No, I know exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like you give away the contact, and the next thing they kick you to the side.
It's like my maid service. Like people are like, "Oh, what maid services do you use for all 20 of my properties, which need cleaning like every month?" And then I'm like,
"You can't.
I can't give you that. Them. I can't." Yeah, I'm like, because I did that. I did that one time to a maid, and I got her so much business. And she was like, this one day, she was like, "Oh, you know," I was like, "Hey, can you clean?" Blah blah blah. She's like, "Oh, we're loaded that day." I'm like, How are you loaded? Because before you would take stuff the same day, and now you're like, and I'm like, I want to help you, but you can't like help too much, because then they can't help you. Like, am I always gonna be first on your list? If I'm gonna help you, am I gonna be first sometimes?
Someone's gonna outbid you. Don't worry about it. I'll let you know off camera who those are. We'll wrap it up, because Joey, you're still coming up here. Yeah, we got the president of Phuket coming on. She's making her first appearance. We're on episode like 111. I've been trying to get Joey on since day one. So I'm not losing her down there. Okay, right before we wrap it up, it's a big thanks to Danyelle for jumping on the podcast. I'm going to shoot it back to this camera here. If you can kind of just let everyone know your socials, where they can find you, and I'll put all the links in the description.
All right, cool. Danyelle Wolf. You can check me out at Danyelle Wolf. It's DANYELLE, and then Wolf like the animal. On Instagram, you can also check out my website, danyellewolf.com. But yeah, I don't really know what Twitter is or any of that stuff. So
Twitter, TikTok.
Haven't got TikTok.
We're getting there.
What is it? What's Twitter?
Twitter's like Elon Musk owns Twitter.
Oh, okay, like little words like
it's like you're posting your thought. It's news.
Awful.
It's news. It's actually Twitter will become the biggest app in the world. Give it like another year. It's going to be the WeChat of USA.
Okay.
Because they're bringing in payment systems. Well, mark my words. I am a tech expert. Everything I say comes true. Twitter will be the biggest app because everything will move over for payment. So you'll be using Twitter to it'll replace things like PayPal. It's all going to come centralized. I won't go too into the deep with that. I truly believe Elon Musk is actually working for the government and he's placed in there. It doesn't make sense, a lot of it. It doesn't make any sense to me. How the fuck can some billionaire guy buy the biggest social media platform and he hasn't been shot yet? He's a plant. He's part of it all. But the Twitter space, this will be the biggest tech app. Give it a couple more years.
Man.
Once because he applied for the payment gateway stuff, it's coming. Probably next year or the year after.
I can't even post on Instagram. I'm going to start, though. I'm like, I haven't posted in a year. You know, I post in my story sometime, but I'm like, you know what? I have so much cool stuff to share. Like, I just did the Nepali coast hike in Kauai before I came out here. That was, like, my getaway trip. But, like, amazing photos from that. I was like, it was an amazing hike, 22 miles, amazing. But, like, the construction, before and afters, training, coming out here, blah, blah, blah. Like, I should post. Like, I have really cool stuff.
We'll find someone in Phuket for you.
Yeah.
All right. That wraps up another episode. We got the president of Phuket coming on. Let's go.